This episode is brought to you by the Denver Fringe Festival. This year, the 6th annual Denver Fringe Festival takes place June 5th through the 8th. You can see over 70 shows at 20 venues all around Denver. There will be pop-up performances, the Fringe Art Show, and free shows at Kids Fringe. Tickets are available online for just $20 per show or $95 for a full festival pass. Go to denverfringe.org to grab yours now. That's denverfringe.org. This episode is brought to you by the Central City Opera. This summer, Central City has talent from the Broadway stages of New York, the Met Opera in NYC, LA, and Chicago, and the best stages in Europe, all performing right in Denver's backyard. Central City Opera is focused on providing opera and musicals for the people. It's not just about tuxes and opera glasses, though you're welcome to dress up if you'd like, but folks can come in their Denver best, aka jeans and flannels. Tickets start at just $34, and listeners can use the code CityCast to get 20% off select dates. Go to centralcityopera.org/citycast to learn more.
Today on CityCast Denver, we're not calling 16th Street a mall anymore, but we're still talking about all the city's big plans to get people excited about downtown. And now we know the stakes for this whole initiative too, after the mayor revealed the details of the city's big budget deficit last week. Westward editor Patty Calhoun joins me to get into the numbers and connect all the dots. Today is Wednesday, May 28th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Patty Calhoun, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Thanks so much.
I'm so glad to have you back. We got some interesting news today.
There is a lot going on in this town right now.
Especially downtown.
Very much downtown. And from really where we are sitting in the Lindy Zimmer studio, just walking over to Civic Center and then all the way to the mall, there's which we can only say for three more days. 3 more days.
We're allowed to say for 3 more days? I thought it was done deal.
The big reveal party is... The announcement was last week, but the big reveal party is this weekend.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to stop saying it now, just to be safe.
Yeah, I will too.
Okay. Well, let's actually talk about our first story here. This is kind of... This is going to matter to more people in a more direct way than the renaming of the mall and some of the big flashy announcements around downtown. But we had been hearing rumors about this, about city revenues being down. And last week, Mayor Mike Johnston announced the details and the consequences. It looks like the city is looking at a $250 million budget deficit over the next 2 years, which means the general fund spending will need to be cut by more than 12%, which means layoffs, furloughs, possibly cuts to the mayor's signature homelessness initiative. Patty, did you expect the deficit to be that big?
No, we didn't. We did know let's come from the national angle. We did know that there is funding really in danger. We've already lost $24 million. We could lose more because of the Trump administration pulling back on alleged sanctuary city, sanctuary state funding. So that could be $200 million, but we do have lawsuits going to try to get that money back. But that would add insult to the injury. We already have $50 million in drop in revenues from sales tax, property tax. And it kind of does feed into the story we're talking about. It was 16th Street downtown, which is people are not spending the same amount of money. And they need to get people out there to spend money because the projections were so much higher than the actual reality has been.
Yeah, I feel like I've been talking about this a lot this year, about how, I just don't think people realize that downtown is not just those businesses story. It's it really does matter for the whole city because sales tax accounts for more than 50% of the city's revenue. And that money goes to all sorts of things that we want, across the whole city, regular basic services, trash pickups, police officers responding to 911 calls. And that sales tax revenue in large part comes from downtown. It's a big economic center.
Right, exactly. At least I think 33% was always coming from downtown. And when you have people not spending as much, where else do you put the money into the budget? If you get grants, great, from the feds. If you get money from the state, great. But otherwise, it's from people spending money in Denver or paying their property tax in Denver. But it's from income coming through the city, and it is way down.
Denverite reported that the 12% that I just mentioned, which is the cut that needs to happen, which is going to mean furloughs, layoffs, et cetera, is bigger even than the cuts the city did during the pandemic of 10%, which I thought was kind of surprising because I thought the pandemic would have been bigger cuts because we didn't know what was happening. But now it seems like we do know what's happening. I don't know. How do you see this in the context of like the ebb and flow of the economy of the city generally?
Well, we have to remember one of the problems is because of COVID, that's why we are down in some of the sales tax revenues. Also, the fact that city employees are still not working full-time downtown is one of the reasons we're collecting less money in sales tax. People aren't going to lunch. People aren't going out for happy hour downtown.
Do you think we could see that change?
I think if they made people work downtown again, you would see some of that change. Now, the question is, would you also get more efficiency in government? Is it more efficient to have people work together? I have to say, I think it is from my own experience here. And here we are speaking opposite each other. I think you get better ideas and more efficiency with people working together in an office if you have a functioning office. So would the city become more efficient? It's going to have to because it's going to have fewer employees.
Yeah, I wonder if the mayor's considering that. I mean, we've already seen him this year take quite a few moves that seem like he's either anticipating or maybe he knew this kind of deficit was coming. I mean, we saw the revamp of the permitting process with the hope of getting more businesses online faster. We saw added police and security downtown to help those businesses make more money. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe it seems like getting city workers full 5 days a week downtown in the office could be coming.
Well, it'd certainly help on your layoffs. If people didn't want to come back downtown, they would have to find other jobs.
They'd have to make that choice.
So that's an easier one if they're going to do something. And it also has the win-win of having money come downtown.
Well, then let's talk about the workers themselves, because there was another report last week from Auditor Tim O'Brien, who said that the threat of layoffs is one of many factors contributing to city employees not feeling a sense of psychological safety. Apparently, there are 4 specific agencies. This is the mayor's office, Department of Arts and Venues, Human Resources, and Parks and Recreation, where there's been high turnover, high stress, and that workers already weren't feeling safe. And now the threat of more layoffs. I mean, what are you hearing from city employees or from the general, like with the morale about inside the city government?
How about the world in general? Who do you know that is feeling really, really secure about life, about work? If you're in the media industry, you don't feel very secure about life and work. So some of it could be management, how those departments are managed. Some of it could be Parks and Recs had cuts in hours last time. You had arts and venues. Some people think arts isn't a luxury item. So I could see those departments might be concerned. But I think in general, it's much more a malaise in general.
I wonder. What do you, I don't know if I'm sensing that. I guess I think a lot about this story I heard a few weeks ago from this person who was very close to the city government for a long time and then has since left a couple of years ago. And she was just telling me about like the cycles of these things and how she was from a city that had gone through a real serious downturn and then bounced back. And she was like, well, Denver's just in the downturn, and there's going to be a bounce back. Right now it hurts because she told me this story about like some major company that had a few years ago been talking about relocating here, which would have been a boon to our local economy. And then they had put it off for whatever reason. A couple of years later, they came back to visit and were like, Denver's not on the list anymore. So like, I think that kind of stuff hurts. And I think like some of the downtown work that we're going to talk about that the mayor's doing is like meant to bring the bounce back faster. But I feel like it's inevitable. Like there's going to be a cycle. There's going to be a return. I just don't know what it's going to mean for the average Denverite. And
what will it look like? We've had the boom and bust cycles. We went through the late 80s. You missed that. But in 1985, I remember someone walked into the Westward office and said, you might have the only jobs that were created in this city this year.
Wow.
Because it was so bad in Denver in the late 85 to the late 80s. Then we were part of the whole country falling apart after 2008, but Denver bounced back faster. And I think maybe we got a little proud of ourselves because everyone wanted to move here back in 2008, 2009. We were the top draw for creatives and millennials. That's changing now, but I do notice a lot of people, younger people, wanting to come to Colorado because they're drawn by the outside. You're not going to recreate that. You can recreate a downtown. You're not going to recreate mountains.
That's true. We do have some very like core foundational advantages that people just like and probably will continue to like and want.
And I've certainly heard for 40 years, people complaining working in the city. Sometimes they're better than others, but complaints are not new.
All right, let's take a quick break and then come back and talk about the exciting stuff. All the things the city's doing to make it exciting again, to be downtown and spend money.
This episode is brought to you by Xcel Energy. The demand for electricity is growing, which is why, for more than 150 years, Xcel Energy has been improving the energy network as Denver grows. They've also committed to Colorado's goal of being completely carbon-free by 2050, and they're working to cut greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030, all while continuing to power Colorado's economy. Xcel Energy is investing to advance Colorado's ambitious clean energy goals while supporting Denver's innovative economy and maintaining an energy infrastructure that can handle severe weather events. They're also investing $22 billion in the next 5 years to deliver safe, reliable service at the lowest possible price. This means more clean sources of energy, more efficient distribution, and more reliability. Also, you can watch the next game or just flip on the lights. Do you know how hard it is to explain where energy comes from to a 3-year-old? Montgomery's like, Mom, where does electricity come from? And I'm like, Xcel? Want to know more? Visit xcelenergy.com/Colorado for more information about how Xcel Energy is planning for the future. That's xcelenergy.com/Colorado.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. 9.5 plus pH, now in cans.
Refreshing.
Made for every way you move.
Should I run a marathon?
Let's start with finishing that water. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant, now in a sleek can. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
All right, we're back. Patty, I got to ask you about the big story of the last week. This is what got everyone talking. The city, the mayor, the Downtown Denver Partnership, they had a big announcement that the 16th Street Mall is no longer the mall. It is just 16th Street now. What do you think about the rebrand?
I think this is the most overblown story we've seen in Denver in a long time. The fact is, what we should be talking about is it's $175 million. Is it going to work? Why did it take longer than it should have? Does it say much about other big public works projects we have in the making in Colorado? I mean, in Denver, National Western, the stadium, Ball Arena. Will things be on time? What do we need to do to make them on time so we don't go through what the mall went through, which is years behind schedule and over budget? $100,000 for a branding campaign is a drop in the bucket. I would certainly not have sent it to London. I would certainly have explained it better because people don't understand $100,000 for a branding campaign that does a lot of research, a lot of public outreach, probably an okay price. People are just laughing that they paid $100,000 to remove one word, but that's not really what they did.
Yeah.
I don't know what name we would have come up with that would have been better than 16th Street. I think we've all been talking. We thought that was happening a year ago. I had it in the Best of Denver. It was the best new name. 16th Street is great history, and we ran a historic piece from someone who remembered what it was like in the downtown and how exciting it was when you were a kid to come downtown to 16th Street. So I think it was overblown, but God, we need that stretch open.
Yeah, you're talking about $175 million that went into redeveloping and reconstructing the
whole mall.
tiling, the whole mall.
When it was still a mall.
The whole, not a mall, the whole 16th Street.
Well, it was a mall. They were redoing what
then.
was done in 82 to make it a mall.
Right. And you mentioned Alan Prendergast's really great article about how it became a mall in the first place. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. One thing I thought was overlooked last week that we didn't talk about on our show Friday when we discussed this was some of that $100,000 does seem to have gone to a local artist who created these really, I think, cool icons. An artist named Brian Montes Terrazas, known as Yams, who says that he designed these icons to represent parts of the 16th Street Mall. I was walking up and down the 16th Street over the weekend, and I saw these things. I think they're cool. Right. I think the branding looks great.
He did a good job on those, and that's why I think the partnership didn't do a good job on telling people what they got for their money. He was at the announcement of the new name, same old name, and he spoke, and he was great. The people who spoke were really good. You just hadn't seen that narrative out and about for a while.
Yeah, you mostly just heard, oh my gosh, how stupid that they spent $100,000 and all they did was drop one word.
Well, we could have gotten a really stupid name, so I'm glad about that. I understand the kind of the Denver Way play that they've got, but better is that they're thinking some smart things to activate, and using that local artist was good.
The icons, have you ever been to Mexico City? You know how they do the subway tiles?
No,
you ever see those?
but-
I would say Google it. If you have never seen that, I feel like that was the note that they gave this Yams artist guy. They were like, look at the subway icons. We want those in Denver. Because that seems like exactly what he did. It's a very flat design. It's just like two colors, bright colors, with touching on like local icons but represented in a very nice style. It's cool.
You've got the clock tower. No,
clock tower.
They're really nice pieces.
And there's one that I'm glad that they're making this a big deal because it really is cool. But they made an icon for the fish with the cowboy hat on it. That's like an actual thing that they've installed now. I don't know who made it exactly, but it's just a great piece of public art. I see people interacting with it all the time now. I love that fish.
And the trouts have been there for a while, the fish.
Have they? When did they
they've
go
been
in?
there. I think they went in last year.
A year? Yeah. They've definitely been up for about at least a year. I don't know exactly when, but if you haven't seen the fish with the cowboy hat, it's cool. I saw a guy taking a picture on it, waving his hat like a cowboy hat. It's fun.
Right. So what's fun is we're going to have a do-over from a very wet Memorial Day weekend,
Which was
where
weird.
I don't know if anyone wound up going out. I don't know what really happened because a lot of things wound up rained out. But this weekend we have the 16th Street summer reopening, except it's not completely reopening, but there'll be a lot down on 16th Street. So we'll see how people are responding.
Yep. Big kickoff party, outside festival and Civic Center, of course.
Which is a different thing, but they're related. You've got a speed climbing thing that's going to happen on 16th Street. So that whole stretch from Union Station all the way to Civic Center, we'll see how many people come out and really experience the city.
All right,
and what they see.
And what they see. All right, so that's the short-term plan for 16th Street in downtown. Let's talk about the long-term, because you and I were at an event last week where some city planner types revealed the next 20-year plan or some draft. I think they still want feedback from people. We'll put a link in the show notes. It'd be great if you send in feedback, got your own ideas in there. But they had a bunch of interesting big ideas for what the next 20 years of downtown would be like. I just wanted to talk about some of these ideas. I thought it was interesting, but maybe we could start with like, what does a plan like this mean?
Well, Denver has them for every neighborhood. And of course, downtown area plan, I can't remember, the last one was 20 years ago
2007.
at least. So this is the update on that. And it's dealing with new realities. You think about 2007, and Denver was really still riding high. People were downtown. The vacancy rate wasn't that high. And now in the mall, which was still the mall, was doing pretty well. I mean, for the next 10 years, people started making more fun of it, but there was still more shopping on the mall in 2007. So now we're seeing how you pick different parts of downtown. That's what they're doing with this area plan, where they can focus on what really needs activation, like the uptown area or the upper downtown. Upper downtown.
Central business. I never know how they divide
upper downtown
them.
is actually by, Civic Center, the Capitol, which always feels lower to me, but we know lower downtown is by Union Station.
Right.
So they're figuring out what needs help. Union Station area doesn't need help. Interestingly, like Lodo Ballpark aren't much in play, but Arapahoe Square, that's one of the ones they're looking at. So they're focusing on certain areas like Skyline, but you need businesses, you need people in the businesses, you need people living downtown, and you need people going downtown.
Yeah, I mentioned this last week, but that was one of the interesting themes to me of the presentation was like, yes, residential is a priority, but the variety of residential is key. Because so far, the last 10, 15 years, a lot of residences have been built, but they're all studios and one bedrooms. So
no
we've got
families.
a lot of young people, young like 20-somethings living downtown and no families. So it doesn't really feel like that much of a neighborhood, and like certain types of businesses can thrive, but not others. And it turns out that diversity is really, really important.
Right, because you might have empty nesters come in. And that's, I think, a lot of the people who've been buying condos downtown or the more expensive places. They use them weekends. They're not there all the time. And then you have young people who it's fun to be where the action is, and they don't care as much how much they're paying if they're sharing it with 5 people. And then you have nothing in between, and that's really a problem.
I got a story about this. So longtime listeners know I've been staying at this one of these like new buildings down behind Union Station, and it's mostly 20-somethings. But there was an older couple downstairs at the coffee machine, which I've mentioned before. It's like you need a QR code to get coffee out of it now, which is insane. But This lady was just standing in front of the coffee machine. She'd never seen a QR code before, and she just wanted her morning coffee. And I had to teach her how to use it. She was grumpy about it, rightfully. That should be just a rule for life. Like, you don't need a QR code to get your coffee. That's
if
not
it's an amenity
right.
at where you live, there should just be the coffee pot
Just let
ready
it be
for
there.
you.
Just let it be there. Anyway, it's my thing. Anyway, some big ideas. There were a lot of big ideas on these slides in this presentation. I'll put a link in the show notes so people can see for themselves. Is anything that jumped out to you, Patty?
Well, I've been going over my notes about things we need downtown again and music downtown, which is one of the issues. We really need to keep celebrating the arts, celebrating the activities that are available. I didn't see that much in that presentation.
I don't think I saw one iota about music.
Yeah, music, but you need that. I mean, we know from 40 years of people reading Westward, you get people in for music. That's where you get them young and get them active, and then they stay active in the city they care about.
Well, one thing that would keep people active and get people, moving downtown, there was one idea: create a new park along Broadway between 19th and 20th Streets. They were like, we should acquire some private land, create a 2-acre park that provides open space, recreational amenities for the Broadway, Arapahoe Square area. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Which is a really smart idea. And you see people right now, what's going with the ballpark neighborhood. These guys got together on their own, taxing themselves on their own to get in the kind of security they want, but also to bring in some of the amenities they want. And I think they show they would really help deal with it. And a park would be great because there isn't an area like that.
There's a couple more in that area that seem like they might be controversial. I don't know. But making 20th Street a two-way street instead of a one-way, and then also Welton Street, these tentative plans to transform those streets into two-way corridors instead of one-way streets.
This is not new. I mean,
No?
there is nothing new under the sun. I have to say, our office was once on Market Street when we first started Westward, and the city turned the street around without any warning because we were doing an all-nighter. The next day we went downstairs. Our cars had been turned around because they changed the direction of the streets. So
you were
streets
parked on going the wrong way?
Yeah, they just turned them around without telling us, which was great.
That's
Very
funny.
good service. But we've gone through two ways. We've gone through one ways. My biggest concern about changing some of these to two ways is between the bike lanes and everything else. What is going to get more jammed? I mean, will traffic get worse downtown? We still need to be able to let people in and out of downtown. However it works, you just don't want them sitting there idling.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me. And also, I'm coming back to current. We just wrote about how they're changing the bike lanes again.
Oh, yeah. What's the story
on Blake
there?
and Market. So they're replacing those white poles that drive people insane, called flex poles or bollards, depending. And they're changing them with two different kinds of barriers, which some people love and some people hate because they're lower. It'll be easier to park. You won't run into them that much. But the question is, will you then run into bicyclists more?
Yeah, I saw some bike people who were grumpy about this. As a biker, I think that feels less secure than a flex post, like having some kind of a visual something showing people like, hey, there's a bike lane here. Why did they do this?
Well, there have been so many complaints about the flex posts, and people have run into them and knocked them over. Not the cyclists, but
Well, they've done a little bit of that too.
yeah, that's true. But the poles themselves aren't supposed to really work that well. So they think they've got better plans. So we wrote a story about that. It went up on Saturday. But if you're going to go back to one way or two way, and I don't have a big issue with that because frankly, none of the one ways are moving fast anyway because you run into 16th Street construction or some other project. But you just have to keep downtown not gridlocked. You have to keep it somehow flowing.
Somehow.
Whether or not you're attracting cars, but the cars that are there should not be stuck there for days trying to go a block.
Another street-related idea I thought was interesting. This seems connected to the bigger plan of building a whole new neighborhood in the Ball Arena parking lots that we know Stan Kroenke, owner of the Nuggets and the Avalanche, is working on doing. But the idea was to put Spear Boulevard, which currently is on both sides of the creek, going in opposite directions, put all of Spear on just the west side of the creek, and then open up all that land on the east side of the creek for things like an urban waterfront, a riverside dining areas, park areas. What did you think about that idea?
Well, the Spear thing's been floated before, and what concerns me the most is we don't get cause and effect here, which is there are not a lot of ways to get to North Denver. So if you get rid of Spear or it's under construction for a long time, how do you get from North Denver to downtown, or parts, Spear is great because it cuts diagonally across the city. If Spear is not running as smoothly as it is or is down for years, what happens to all the people living in the River Mile, living at Ball Arena, living up in Highland? How do they even get into town?
Yeah.
So right now we have a pretty easily traversed city, unless you're downtown in the middle of construction or anywhere else there's construction like Colfax. But that Spear project, they just don't really seem to look at where the population centers are in town.
Well, and
that concerns me.
And it's a 20-year plan, too, so it's hard to know where the people are going to be. And since they don't know when they're going to be doing the construction, I don't think on that,
that seemed more pie in the sky. They really hadn't done projections on that.
Yeah.
And another thing I was talking to you about when we were at that presentation, at the Denver Creates presentation a week earlier, which was finally arts and venues talking about some things. They talked about a marketplace downtown, an art marketplace, permanent, with some residencies, which sounded great. It doesn't show up in this downtown plan, but allegedly it's really in the works. But I think that's an important component to bring people downtown, to have it grow and have it have cultural activities as well as commerce.
I wonder how much these agencies and the departments talk to each other about this kind of thing.
I sometimes worry they don't talk at all.
I do too. Because I've heard from some people that are I know there's resentment with the Human Resources Office, and that was part of the auditor's plan that we were talking about. Some people don't seem to trust the Human Resources Office. But yeah, between departments, is Dottie and Arts and Venues talking? Is Dottie and the police department talking about this kind of thing? The traffic enforcement people and the street design people? I don't know. And then you fold in the layoffs and the furloughs conversation, and does anyone have time
to talk,
to do anything that's not just their basics of their job?
You would hope they're all talking. I was talking to someone who is a PIO and how they used to have PIO meetings, and at least you'd know some of the big plans coming.
This is a public information officer. So,
but I'm not sure they have those anymore.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen Report.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Okay, so one last big idea. This did not come from city planners or the mayor, but the governor's office last week. We have to talk about this, but it sounds like Governor Polis is not loving his view down into Civic Center Park from the governor's office in the Capitol, because last week Polis revealed renderings for a long-rumored elevated pedestrian bridge that would link Lincoln Street with the west steps of the Capitol. Patty, did you see these renderings?
Well, yes, and this is not long rumored. He has said flat out he's going to do it. It's been on the website. It's part of the 150th anniversary.
The sesquicentennial?
Yeah. But anyway, he's been talking about it, and I never liked the idea in the first place, but I've withheld judgment until now where I'm not going to anymore. It's an insanely stupid idea, no matter how it's designed, for a variety of reasons. One, we don't have the money. Number two, the whole goal, really when we knocked down viaducts and things in Denver, was to get people down on the ground so that they see the city around them. They interact with other humans, they interact with businesses. And here you have this area designed a century ago to really appeal to people, to bring them to the heart of the city. So you go from the Capitol, down the hill, through Civic Center to City Hall. This will take people over all that. And why are we doing that? Why are we not going to ground level and making it great? I mean, I walked from our office down to the former Post building for that display, and you walk through Veterans Park. There's some issues there with the denizens of the park, who were very friendly, but
for the most part, you hear about problems.
Yeah, but I have to say I had no problems walking over. Yeah. So I'm walking over and chatting with people as I go, and there's no one in Civic Center because, of course, they've kind of been booted out of there over to this park. But the solution is not to walk above them and like really eye level with the obelisk, which is the Veterans Memorial. It's a really strange, unless it was a water tube, a water chute, it doesn't make any sense the way it's going. And then you kind of land at Civic Center, except Civic Center still, the plans are to close it for 2026 renovations. Like, are they talking to each other? Why are we doing a 150th anniversary bridge to a park that's going to be closed? So both of these things do not make sense. No one's talking to each other, but I think the goal should be to get people down to ground level in Denver. Let them go high in the mountains. Get them to ground level. Let them interact with each other. If we have problems with homelessness in that area, the solution is not to go over it and ignore it.
For the record, the Denver Post reported that this bridge that Polis wants to build is expected to cost between $18 and $20 million from a mix of public funding and money from private donations. And according to the Post, Polis said in an interview last week that building the walkway was inspired by several factors, including boosting connectivity and pedestrian safety, as well as creating a lasting monument to celebrate the state's milestone anniversary, the 150th anniversary. So that's why he wants to do it.
I would argue a useless, ugly, there's also the whole historic issue, because this is a National Register historic place. The National Registry covers Civic Center up past the Capitol. It goes to Grant. So you already are in trouble with national credentials for a historic landmark with this bridge. But I think the solution for 150th is to get down to ground level and all celebrate and be together as opposed to go over people.
Yeah. We put pictures of the renderings in our newsletter today, and the response has been overwhelmingly negative.
Unless it's a water tube. In which case you could just shoot down.
Well, we'll poll the readers on the water tube. I have no idea.
But again, and it's going to a park that's going to be closed for the 150th anniversary.
It's just hard to imagine this actually happening.
Oh, it won't happen.
Doesn't seem like it's going to happen at all.
20 million. I would guess there's some private donors who are very, very interested in this. And they've been pushing it and have promised some money to Polis, but it's not going to pay for the whole thing.
Well, if they would pay for the whole thing, maybe
it would still be a stupid idea, but he could do it.
And
but right now, it is not a good idea for the state.
Have a big fight with the historic preservationists.
That fight is coming.
Yeah, because we saw them already speaking out against this. Anyway, looks like we don't have time for listener comments and questions. We'll have to do extra next week when our host Bree Davies is back. Patty Calhoun, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Hey, if you have any thoughts or feelings about anything we've talked about today or any other day on the show, feel free to let us know. The CityCast Denver hotline is open at 720-500-5418. Again, that number is 720-500-5418. Send us a text, leave us a voicemail. We want to know what you think. See you next time. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell a city employee about us, rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then.